I thought that real breakthrough would be if you could have people of color and there would be no real reference to them being a person of color in a role. So, like my example that I used to use when I was 19, 20 years old in film school was I want to see a movie where Luke Skywalker is black and nobody's talking about him being black and he's not stereotypical in any way, but it's just the hero of the movie just happens to be a person of color. That to me was true breakthrough. And honestly, Mindy's representation of Velma basically being that thing that I envisioned in 1990 as a real breakthrough is happening now. And it's not really it's not a topic of discussion on every episode of Velma that Mindy is, um, you know, South Asian. It just happens to be so. And there's a show out right now on Netflix called Beef, where all of the characters are East Asian. And, from Japanese to Vietnamese to Korean to Chinese. And a it's not a show about that. It's just the characters are that, you know. And I feel the most passionate about that kind of representation more than anything else. I think everything is important. I think stories that are stories about the culture of the people represented are important, obviously. But I also think it's important when a wider audience can just see a character of another culture portrayed as the lead without it being a story about that person's culture. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And it speaks to some of the trepidation that I went into it with because on one hand I was excited in terms of, oh, so maybe we're gonna see, some exploration of South, Asian culture. Like for me, I know that a lot of that culture is having really strict parents that were like, you have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer. And I was like, okay,
Right.
maybe this will explain why Velma is the need to be the one that solves everything. And then when it wasn't about that, it was a bit like whiplash. It kind of threw me for a loop a bit. But when you've explained it like that, it does start to make more sense from that angle.
Yeah, it's I don't know if I can really articulate it well, but I think when my experience is if the stories are very much about exploring the culture from like a large monolithic point of view, the first thing it does is it makes everybody, even if you're part of the culture, it makes you feel like we're all the same. And I don't think that that's fair. Like it's interesting that you were thrown whiplash style, like when you saw that it wasn't exploring
Yeah.
these experiences that you've had as a South Asian, but you know, maybe not exploring those things becomes more exclusive to other South Asians that didn't necessarily have that experience that you had with strict parents and you have to be a doctor, you have to be a lawyer. It may be sometimes cliches are cliches because they're pretty prevalent,
Yeah.
but wouldn't it be also nice to not explore the cliches and then allow people that might be feeling maybe a little insecure that they're South Asian, but they didn't have that experience? Am I not really South Asian because I didn't have strict parents who wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer? Am I not really black because I didn't have, you know, the experience with I'm actually uh, West Indian American. My parents are from Jamaica. So, are should a story about my family talk about the fact that there are many things about Jamaican culture that my family didn't embrace that are part of like the cliches of the wider understanding of like Jamaican culture? Like, so I just think it allows more people to be brought in rather than only the people that had those experiences brought in. So I think there's room for both. I mean, I think there's a total show with a South Asian character, a South Asian Velma, who in her household has all of these sort of cultural things that she had that maybe she's modeling when she goes and becomes like a detective. Maybe that's actually very interesting. But there's room for the one that was made too, where that wasn't. Maybe that's not part of Mindy's culture at home. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
definitely. Even the fact that, she's over in America and I'm in the UK, even that alone, that difference
yeah,
could mean, night and day in many cases.
it could be. Yeah, like I know West Indians in England have a very different experience than West Indians in America. But yet they both come from the same place. One just went here and the other went there. And then the cultures of those two countries that they landed in help shape their experience as immigrants. So it's all super interesting to me. And I'm proud of being part of a show like Velma where it's created by a person of color, it's voiced by a person of color, and its lead is a woman person of color as well. Like that, I think it's all great.